Kapowians! This is Kapow, and we are comics, cartoons, and collectibles.
No, we're not. We're Sonia and Al.
I was going for a whole kind of experiential, metaphysical thing.
Didn't really land.
Well, you ruined it.
Oh, I guess
so
I
just
did. You know
forget
what?
it. Did you forget about it?
All right, fine. You know what? We haven't actually asked our Kapowians how they feel about this new little corner that we've set up here at King's Comics.
A Kapow corner.
If you will.
Yes, I'm sure that they like it as much as we do.
Well, we put a lot of effort into it.
Really, we put a TV behind us and kind of
Yeah,
move to the
okay,
other
but
end
let's talk about what we're looking at in the show today.
Okay, all right.
We will be having reviews of Young Avengers and the Books of Magic.
Yes, and we've got a collectible today. Ray has brought along quite a masterpiece.
Okay, but first, let's have a look at Deadpool Killustrated.
Indeed. As some people may remember, last season we took a look at Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, and our opinions were somewhat divided.
Yeah.
I thought it was flawed, but essentially good fun.
And I thought it was an irritating waste of time. But here we are now at round 2.
Ding ding!
Yes, with Cullen Bunn writing a follow-up to his Kills the Marvel Universe series with Deadpool Killustrated.
Absolutely. After Deadpool has killed all the Earth's mightiest heroes and villains and nothing really changes, he decides to go a bit further afield and ventures into the literary world, starting off with the big white one himself, Moby Dick.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Now, he also runs into poor old Don Quixote and Sancho Panza in this first episode as well. You know, with how I felt about the previous series, I was pleasantly surprised by this comic.
Well, look, I am kind of glad that you said that. Look, I do feel that this one kind of had something. There was something to that story that was lacking from the first one.
I think what was lacking was a story, but I think what it comes down to with this one, everything that I disliked about Kills the Marvel Universe is put right in this comic. I mean, there's a real cohesion and a sense of momentum to the story, and there's also real character development and motivation there as well.
Yeah, and there is that strong sense of humour coming through it, which is really important in a Deadpool story. Like, it's still quite dark and it's a little bit stabby.
And quite shooty as well.
Well, it's Deadpool.
Sure.
But there's also a few little one-liners that stop it from becoming quite bleak and maudlin.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say on the second page, when he makes a penis joke, I breathed a huge sigh of relief.
And it's also interesting that there's a new creative team on this with Matteo Lolli on pencils. He creates some really nice frames showing the enormity of Deadpool's task.
Yeah.
But also I find he's kind of added something where you get a little bit of empathy for Deadpool, which again wasn't in that first series.
Yeah, and of course we've got Sean Parsons on inks, who also does a great job. And I think with the art, there's been a real positive change here. I mean, there's a real sense of cause and effect in the images, and everything, we get to see what's happening. There's nothing just tons of fights happening off panel like there was in the previous one. It really did. It really did. But there's none of that here. We get to see what's going on.
Nice. And as Deadpool kind of heads outside of the comic world and into the Ideaverse, as they name it, in search for new people to decapitate, it's a nice, consistent comic visual style that goes along with him. Overall, I really enjoyed this. I found it quite funny, and the art style was really quite engaging. I think it's going to be quite a dark, little twisted story, but I'm okay with that. It's a buy from me.
And actually from me as well.
Look at that.
You know, seriously, everything that Kills the Marvel Universe did wrong, I think this one is doing right.
Cool.
Whether it stays as strong as the series goes on,
only time will tell.
we have yet to see, yeah. But this one, as a first issue, it's definitely a buy. It's well worth a look.
Cool.
Do you have a preference though?
I don't know. I think I got a soft spot for the classic Nicholson. He was kind of cool.
I like Nicholson. I liked it in the stylized way that Burton had you know, done Batman. And Ledger's, you know, Ledger had another facet to it, definitely. You know, they're both different interpretations. I love them both. I don't know. I've had qualms about their performance. Crap. I mean, great. It's crap that we didn't know you were here, but it is great to see you now.
Let's talk about this, right?
Yes, let's.
Masterpiece here.
Let's. Okay. So, Enterbay proudly presents the Dark Knight Joker Masterpiece action figure. The Joker is arguably one of the most popular supervillains of all time, and this figure includes a head sculpt with authentic likeness and the newly developed action body with more than 30 articulations. It also has a movie-accurate signature costume featuring the purple velvet coat with a removable grenades holder, a grey blazer, a green waistcoat, purple pants, a pair of braces, patterned purple shirt, and a green tie, 11 pieces of interchangeable hands, 8 of them with gloves, 11 poker cards in quarter scale, and exciting movie-accurate weapons, which are the RPG launcher, 5 grenades with 2 styles and 3 different colors, a knife, a Glock 17 pistol, and an M76 machine gun. It also comes with a stand.
Yeah, just in case you weren't satisfied. You
Yes.
just wanted that extra thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Sonia, had you heard of Enterbay before?
No.
What about Blitzway?
No.
But you'd heard of Sideshow, right?
Yes.
Okay, now all these guys, they're slowly creeping in on a market that up until now has largely been dominated by hot toys. Now, they're all seeking to replicate the iconic characters of pop culture, generally in a 6th scale format for collectors, right? Well, Sideshow, they've long been known for doing excellent statues, but they've just released their first 6th scale figure, and I think it's in direct competition to Hot Toys.
Right.
Well, I don't think they're necessarily purposefully doing it, but it's interesting because they also host and advertise and promote Hot Toys on their own website.
Yeah.
Now, Blitzway are doing something. They're entering the market. They're relatively new. They want to become one of the best collectible companies in the world. And then there's Enterbay. Now, Enterbay are relatively new as well. They were established in 2005. Now, they've released this figure, which is the first of their quarter-scale action figures. You can see they're trying to break the mold a little bit by going quarter scale instead of 6th scale. Maybe they're trying to create their own collection. The reason why I'm talking about all of this is I think there's going to be a bit of a war within that market, and you know, who has the best collectible, the most likeness, you know, the quality and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that could yield great reward for collectors, because I think there might be a bit of a price war about to happen as well.
I mean,
who knows?
Yeah, but one thing is for certain, collecting is kind of at its height, I think, at the moment. We've
It
all
is.
become little collectibles, especially with the movies and stuff. We
Yes.
want the tangible thing.
Everything, games as well. You get the statues, you get the pieces,
Yep.
everything. Yeah, all these monumental statue pieces, even icons on your desk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all right. Well, let's move on and talk about this amazing masterpiece, right? First of all, it's quarter scale, which is huge. It's really quite striking, the size of it. I love it. And a grand piece like this in your home deserves some special placement for that extra attention. Secondly, does it look like Ledger's Joker? Yes, it does. Absolutely. Amazingly so. The detailing in the face is incredible. The colors are exceptional. I really like how the hair isn't just too green. There's nice details of patchy face paint, the oiliness of the hair and the running eye makeup. They're really exciting to see.
The expression captures the very essence of Ledger's Joker too. It's very alluring, despite the danger that it exudes. I love the clothing as well. They look fantastic, true to colour and to style. Most of all though, I love that you can see the texture and then you can go right on ahead and feel it.
Now, even in the neutral stance, there's still a power emanating from him, which is fantastic. Though, personally, I'd prefer to mold him into something a little bit more dynamic, but luckily you can, because there's an abundance of accessories and switch-out hands of which you can create your own unique Joker. And I think that's what, you know, fans and collectors love about these posable action figures, is because you can do just that. Most of all, I love the detail in these extras. They're incredible. They're not too fiddly either, and they feel solid. And Enterbay goes a long way into making them quality as well. They make them with real metal, sometimes with real wood as well, depending on the action figure. I love them. One of my favourite pieces of all this is that they've included the Joker clown mask, which he can carry or wear. It also comes in an awesome case as well, which is only a small extra, but it just adds that extra bit of, you know, grandeur to the whole piece. Yeah. What about you, Sonia? What do you think of the piece?
Look, I think he's fantastic. I do wish that the base was a little bit broader, just so that you can give him a stronger stance and maybe play around with his pose a little bit more.
Yes.
The fabric on this, though, I keep coming back to this fabric because it makes him a lot more charismatic and a lot more alluring. A lot of statues, especially museum pieces, I find they're quite cold.
Yeah.
They're very... that's
just molded.
Molded.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, you can touch the velvet coat, you can feel the whole thing. And I think that's a really important
Adds a movement
detail.
to it almost.
It
yeah.
does. I really love him. Look, he does come with a hefty price tag, I have to say, which can alienate some collectors. But I think it's worth saving up for. He is quite spectacular, and with all those extras, he's definitely a buy from me.
All right. Well, you can also get the Batman Dark Knight statue. It's also quarter scale, of course. The companion piece. Personally, I prefer the Joker over the Batman. I'm splitting hairs here, but even though the Batman comes with, more switch out heads and loads of accessories as well, I just think there's something else that emanates from the Joker piece. I've always been a bit more of a statue fanboy, personally, but Enterbay have done something really interesting here. They've struck a perfect balance between a museum piece and a posable action figure. I think that's something really interesting that they're going for.
Yeah.
I think it'll prove quite popular. It is expensive, yes, but it's also an iconic piece. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a centerpiece. It'll draw a crowd. So yeah, I agree. Save your pennies for this one. It's a buy from me as well.
The concept of superhero legacies has a long and generally favourable history, with the mantles of caped Avengers and roof-hopping vigilantes alike being passed on to a whole new generation of superheroes. One of the most popular of these was probably the Young Avengers from creators Alan Heinberg and Jim Cheung.
But here we are in the era of Marvel now, and Kieran Gillen has picked up the mantle and created a new series of Young Avengers, using some of the surviving members of the original team along with Kid Loki. They're a couple of years older, but are they necessarily any wiser?
Well, I've got to say I'm always a little wary of fresh young faces in the Marvel Universe. Because what I want to see is people with superpowers punching other people with superpowers in the face. That's it. I don't want to see young people with superpowers wondering about who they should date and updating their Facebook page.
Yeah, but they can do both.
Yeah, but will they? That's my concern. Because what I absolutely do not want to see is a series that turns into basically the OC in capes.
Well, I don't think you have to worry about that in the first issue. It's got some really nice action sequences in here.
Yeah, but it also has 4 pages of Wiccan and Hulkling discussing their relationship in just a barrage of unnecessary exposition.
Okay, so maybe that section was a little overlabored, and I will admit it did affect the pacing, which starts really strongly with Kate Bishop, aka Hawkeye, and Marvel Boy waking up after hooking up on a spaceship.
Which is pretty cool.
Which is pretty awesome. And then it follows a beautiful 2-page spread of a pretty intense Skrull attack.
Damn Skrull.
Damn Skrulls.
They're always messing up morning snuggles.
know.
It's just not on.
It's rude.
But I've got to say, Jamie McKelvey and Mike Norton's art works really well in this, especially, as you say, in those double-page spreads.
Yeah,
There's a couple of those in this issue, and they both work really well. But I'm not worried about how it looks. I'm worried about the consistency of the story.
No, I do understand. I wish that there was a little bit more character development with some of the other characters, like with Miss America Chavez and Kid Loki.
Yeah.
When they show up, it's quite dynamic and it's quite intriguing as to why they're reacting that way to each other, but it's never actually explained. But I guess that's what the rest of the series is for.
Yeah.
Overall, I really enjoyed this issue. The relationships are fresh and new, but they still have that feeling of being lived in, because it is a couple of years on from when we first got introduced to these. I think it's a buy from me. I think it's going to be a really cool series.
I still just do have a concern that it's going to be too much focus on the relationships and not enough on the biffo. But that said, you can't get away from the fact that it does look really good.
It does.
And the characters are quite fully formed and believable.
They look great in this.
There's a lot of positive things here. So I'm going to give it a borrow, and I'm going to see how it progresses, whether the speed and the action picks up.
Fair cool. Before there was Harry Potter, there was another young, bespectacled English lad who was discovering he had a talent for magic. His name was Timothy Hunter, and he was the lead character in Neil Gaiman's 4-part series, The Books of Magic.
Yes, now obviously this is not new content. This was a miniseries that was released in 1990 and then rolled on to become an ongoing series under different writers. But the Volume 1 has been re-released now in a hardcover deluxe edition.
Yes.
So we thought, since obviously there's going to be a lot of people who weren't collecting at that time, or for whatever other reason just happened to miss it, it would be well worth a look.
So, story-wise, this mini-series is a who's who of DC and Vertigo's mystical community. Young Tim Hunter comes to the attention of the Trenchcoat Brigade, a group of mystics made up of the Phantom Stranger, John Constantine, Dr. Occult, and Mr. E.
Now, poor old Tim, at 12 years of age, is told that he has the potential to become the most powerful magician of the age. And, pretty heavy
That's
for
pretty heavy for a
young age.
12-year-old.
Yeah, and then he's taken off on a quite literal magical mystery tour.
No Beatles.
No, there are 4 guys with hats, but, nonetheless. And it's all about trying to decide whether he wants to be a magician or not.
Now, not content with simply introducing DC's stable of wizards and warlocks, Gaiman also brings in a host of other faces from myth and folklore. So Merlin, Baba Yaga, and the 5 archangels appear alongside familiar faces like Zatanna, Dr. Fate, and the Spectre. Even the Endless make an appearance, with Dream, Destiny, and Death all showing up before the end.
Yeah, and in true Gaiman fashion, none of this is spoon-fed to you. There is very little in the way of exposition here, so it may be that you'll miss some of the references, but if you don't know who some of the characters are, it's actually not going to harm the story.
No, because it moves quite quickly on to the next section and the next most extraordinary, beautiful artwork.
Yes,
Gotta say
because
it.
this is the thing, with these 4 parts that this is broken into, all with different artists doing them, there's a fantastic scope for visual variety here.
And I have to admit, there are a couple of my personal favourites within this. We've got John Bolton and Charles Vess, who a lot of you know, some of my favourites.
Yeah.
And this is the beauty of a 4-part series, with each artist being able to really show what they do the best in each story.
It's true. I mean, Bolton's work in the first part, where Tim goes into the past with the Phantom Stranger, has some fantastic full-page spreads with some real vast spaces involved.
There is the frameless kind of universe. He's really good at it. And there's a section in Fairyland. Now, come on. Who else are you going to get to draw fairies except Charles Vess?
It's true.
Give me a break.
It's kind of his thing.
It is.
Nobody does it quite like him. But I've got to say, my favourite bit was probably part 2, where Tim goes on a journey to America. Partly because I love the way that Gaiman writes John Constantine. He's got a real cheekiness to him.
Yep.
It's really, really nice. And the artwork by Scott Hampton is at its best when it takes a turn for the grotesque.
But then you've got Paul Johnson's work when Mr. E takes Tim into the far-flung future, where it all gets quite beautifully chaotic and quite bizarre. And it's really hard to find a weak point with this book. Being that it's a re-release, how are we going to rate this
Well,
one?
I think it comes down to whether you bought the originals.
True.
I think that's one of the major yardsticks here, because in and of itself, as a story, as a work of art,
Yep.
it's absolutely a buy.
Yes.
But if you already have the singles, for example, I know this says it's a deluxe edition, but I don't think there's actually enough extra there to justify a repurchase.
Yeah, there's a few extra sketches from the artists and a few author notes, but not quite enough to really justify buying a second copy if you've already got this one. This is more of a Kapow recommends. If you happen to miss out on its first incarnation, definitely go out and buy this. But if you've already got this one, it's probably not worthwhile picking up this edition of it.
Yeah.
But definitely go get it if you missed this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Get out there now.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's it for the YouTube show this week, guys, but don't forget, you can head on over to sftv.com.au for even more Kapow!
That's right. This week we take a look at Star Trek Countdown to Darkness and also The Answer.
Yes, and as for next week's show right here, we are launching into one of our fantastical competitions.
Yes,
we know you've been
indeedy.
waiting for it.
Absolutely.
And here it is, your chance to win
Da-da-da!
the hardcover edition of District 14.
Yes.
So we will be releasing details on that next week about how you can pry it from Sonia's cold dead fingers.
Mine. And until then, we'll see you next week, guys.
Bye.
Bye. They're not having it. No.
Sonia,
No.
that was the deal with
No.
humanoids.
It's
you can't
mine.
keep
You
it.
can't have it. No. Ow! Ow!